Welcome to Imagine Better, everybody. Your host, Mark Powers, my amazing, talented superstar of a guest, Danielle Bernock. Danielle, welcome.
Thank you for having me. I'm really excited about this. I've never done one in person before. Like I was just telling you, I've done a ton of podcasts. But in person, this is new and exciting.
Yeah. You know, it's I've been getting the same feedback from everybody that comes into the studio. We get an opportunity to kind of meet. Obviously, you know, most of the people I'm having on the show I already know, have a relationship to some degree. But being able to just feel that energy, see the smile, and just work off that energy together, I love it.
Yeah, when you start, you always start with people you know, and then you start branching out into other people you don't know, and you get referrals from other people.
Absolutely. Yeah, so, I mean, that's exciting. So, everybody, we are going to dive in. Danielle is an amazing speaker. You'll see that here today. She is a coach. She is also an author of a few, 3 books? 4 books? 5 books. And I'll let her speak to that a little bit on her own there. Today's topic, though, we're going to just kind of dive in. We might go all over the place, and that's okay. But it's at the core of this thing, it's self is the core of every person. And I think I grabbed that from your website or maybe it was your LinkedIn account. Mm-hmm. So I was like, oh, that'd make an interesting topic. Yeah. So you talk about self a lot, you know.
My process.
You're the internet lady of love. You're the lady who loves.
Yeah, that lady on the internet who loves you. It's a hashtag. I own the hashtag. Yeah. I didn't pay for it, but I took ownership of it. It's mine.
It. You sat and squatted that thing on the internet. It's yours. So tell our audience a little bit more about you. What's your why? You know, we're gonna get into this thing because you have a story. Mm-hmm. And I wanted to tie right into our topic today and why that topic is so important to you.
It is so important to me for multiple reasons. One is I'm a childhood trauma survivor. Trauma steals a person's sense of self. They lose their sense of identity. So they lose who they are in the world, how they feel about themselves, everything. It's just like gone.
Right.
So that's one aspect of it. But then as a believer, certain parts of the church, I want to be nice and vague here because I'm not attacking anyone, they are really condemning of the self. Right. So that piggybacked onto the trauma, plus I had religious trauma, and my self was like non-existent, and it was just, I was miserable to my core. Right. And healing from my trauma, I regained my sense of self, I regained my sense of value. And I want other people to regain that.
Right.
I want them to know who they are, that they matter, they have inherent value, just because they're breathing. There was a time when I felt like I didn't have the right to draw breath.
Oh,
that's how bad it was.
Terrible.
But we have the right to enjoy life. You know, we're created in the image and likeness of God. Humans are unlike any other living being on this planet.
Right.
And when we live life less than how we're created, we suffer.
Yeah.
We suffer, and I want people to stop suffering. I want to help them embrace what I call their God-given greatness, because I believe there's greatness inside of each of us, very unique to each of us.
Yes.
And if we don't tap into that, we're actually stealing that from the world.
Yeah, and you know, and that's one thing I love about starting this show is that I get to experience others, their journeys, their stories. It helps me, but it's them. I want everyone out there. You can resonate with Danielle's story today. Man, that's the goal, right? If it can impact one of you out there, and obviously, you know, in the description stuff, I'm going to provide every access you can possibly get to reach out to her website or socials or whatever. I want you to really leverage her if you're going through something and you feel that she can help you. So, I mean, that's powerful because when you go through this life journey, I mean, we all experience some level of trauma. Mm-hmm. Others obviously more deeper than others, but I think that transformation, you had to have dug deep and just like find everything inside you to stand tall and climb to the top of that mountain again. It sounds like not everybody can do that. I think when we find ourselves at what maybe some people would consider a low point in life, they feel like they can't do that because you don't have the resources. Maybe you don't have the right audience around you. And, you know, I found myself in that situation many times. for the last 3-4 years now, I've been climbing back to the top of my mountain.
That's why support is so important.
Yes.
Support and encouragement. Because yes, we can feel like I can't do this. I run into some people on my book signings and told them about what I do, and they acknowledged that they had trauma, but they refused to do something about it.
Right.
And it really caught me by surprise, because I understand being afraid to do something, being hesitant to do something. I have physically backed up when people have asked me to speak. The very first time someone asked me to speak, I physically backed up, went no.
Isn't that scary though?
But it was scary. And see, fear is different than refusal to me.
Right.
And so that's why support and encouragement is crucial, because you could say, here, I will help you. Yes. I will lift you up. I will hold your hand. I will go through it with you. You are not alone, and you don't have to go through it alone. And that's part of what I do with my speaking, to encourage people. I do workshops and stuff to groups, and my one-on-one coaching to help people to dig inside themselves and get the courage in their own self so they can stand up on their self. And like the whole self thing, I mentioned a little bit about the sense of self, but that's also my process. It stands for see, expose, love, and free. And I made it my process because the self is where your sense of choice resides. Right. No one can make you make a choice. We can feel like it. You made me this, you made me that. That's not true, though. Right. And sometimes we think it's true, but that doesn't make it true. But if we can open our eyes to see, wow, I didn't really make that choice. I was coerced into it. Right. I was manipulated into it. Then it wasn't your whole self that was in it. It wasn't your whole self that was into it. So self is where the core of your choice resides. So that's why I want to tap into that to empower every individual to grab a hold of their whole self, of who they were born to be. And I love the title of your podcast, to Imagine Better.
Right.
I use the term dare a lot. Yeah. For the same kind of reason. Because if you say imagine, then people will pause and start to think, but if you tell someone to do, you need to this, you go, hey, don't you tell me what to do.
Yeah, right.
But if you can imagine, or as I say, dare you to believe. Like if you dare a little kid, I dare you to eat that earthworm. Right. Are they going to eat the earthworm?
Most likely.
Most likely.
I know. I'm sure I did as a kid.
That's why I want to dare people, because I want to incite that tapping into the self of, I can do this, I will do this, I can do this, somehow I'm going to do it in spite of myself or whatever. That's what I want to tap into with with the self.
So what's the ideal coaching client for you? And what is that process? Like, how is somebody, they're watching this and they go, man, I just resonate. Everything that Danielle just said today hits hard inside my soul and my heart. Mm-hmm. And I need to be able to, make these changes. Mm-hmm. Walk somebody through what that might look like.
What it might look like?
Like getting me started as a brand new potential client for you.
Well, I start everyone with what's called a discovery session. Okay. It's a 15-minute session. It's complimentary. And it's to meet each other. Yeah. Like we are meeting each other and talking with one another. Right. Because it's crucial to have a good fit. Same thing with a counselor. There are bad fits. And I encourage people, if you're in counseling and it's not working, don't quit counseling, get a new counselor. Yeah. It's not the counseling that isn't working, it's the fit isn't right.
Real quick on that one, and that's so important. And I mentioned this in the inaugural pilot. I mentioned this in my episode 1 with Jacob Brown. And I'll mention it here today. For the last year of my life, I have been doing therapy. I go every week. And I'll tell you, it has been the most amazing, refreshing eye-opener of life to me. Mm-hmm. It doesn't mean I'm crazy. It just means I'm trying to figure some stuff out in my own world. Mm-hmm. And going to therapy, getting that professional help, it's put structure and gives you strategies in how to tackle that.
And accountability.
And a big-time accountability.
Accountability. And the support of just not being alone.
Right.
The stigma out there that counseling is for the weak is a lie.
I agree with that.
It is a lie. Counseling is for the strong. Yeah. It takes courage to go into counseling. I put myself in counseling to write my first book. So glad I did. Nice. I didn't know how much I needed to have done that. But in counseling, I learned the whole second half of my first book. I didn't even know that was a thing in my life until I was in counseling, and she opened my eyes to things I had dismissed as nothing. I didn't recognize because they were just my normal. Right. And that's something I help people to illuminate what they don't know. That's that aha moment is like, oh, that's a thing.
You talk about that on your
Yeah.
profile, on your website, that aha moment.
Yeah,
And-
it's like turning the light on. When my counselor opened my eyes to what I've learned is called childhood emotional neglect, she didn't use the term. She stopped me in my explanation when I was telling her how I didn't feel loved by my family. I
Right.
felt like I didn't belong and I wasn't
That's too
wanted,
bad.
but I was on my way to another point. So I was, continue to. She stopped me. She's like, "Wait, stop." I'm like, "What?" And she said, "Why?" I'm like, I don't know why I believed that. I just did. She goes, "Something went terribly wrong."
Oh my goodness! Yeah.
I'm like, "It did? Something went wrong?" And I was confused, genuinely confused. I had no idea what she was talking about. And she went on to elaborate what a child is supposed to feel like when they're growing up. And I was like,
wow.
that was an aha moment for me. And so I want to create those for others. It was the beginning of my healing from all
Right.
of that.
So that's interesting. I've been learning this myself. The behaviors, the patterns, the things that we were programmed, we were around in our childhood, legitimately carries into our adulthood.
Oh,
And
yeah.
most of us don't even realize that.
Well, your childhood affects your adulthood, period.
Right.
Whether it's positive or negative, whether it's good or bad, whether it's helpful or harmful.
Yeah.
Your childhood impacts your adulthood. And for people to own the truth of that,
Yeah.
they want to only own it if it was a good thing. And sometimes they don't even own it when it's a good thing. Well, I learned that from my parents. I learned to be strong because of that. I learned to be able to stand up for myself because of my teacher in, 5th grade or whatever the case may be.
Right.
But it could have been a situation you went through when you were 6 or when you were in 4th grade or when you were in 6th grade. And you're like,
Right.
well, it wasn't a big deal. Is it affecting you now?
Right.
See, trauma is not something that happened to you. Something I am driven to get out there is the understanding of what trauma is and what trauma is not.
Yeah.
Trauma is not an incident. Trauma is not a thing that happened. Trauma is what is left behind on the inside of a person when they've been through something that left a mark. It's a
Right.
wound. It's an internal wound. It happens involuntarily. You can't
Yeah.
will yourself to not be traumatized. You can't think you're so strong that that didn't happen to you. You can lie to yourself all day long.
Don't
but,
do that.
But, it's a lie. I
Yeah.
love to tell the story of a gentleman named John. He's one of the people I interviewed in my book, Because You Matter. In between the chapters is a different story of a different overcoming story. Someone
Right.
overcame different things, males and females, and different ages and that. John is a trauma counselor. He went to a special school in high school. He did it on purpose. And the way I like to illustrate it for people to help them understand, it's sort of like they helped him to become like an emotional Navy SEAL. Put you through
an
really
interesting
hard
perspective.
things. I can't do this. Yes, you can. And push you further. And you think you can't go and push you further and further and further and further. And this is how he went through high school. So when he graduated, he was emotionally strong, intelligent, full of resilience and all of that. Then he goes into the military. More of that kind of training. Then he's a trauma counselor. More of that
Wow.
training. If anyone would be impervious to trauma, it would have been John.
Interesting. Yeah.
However, John developed PTSD because of something that happened to his brother. I love to tell this story because no one is impervious. You can't be strong enough. You can't be too old. You can't be too young. You can't control if trauma happens. It's involuntary. And so we have
Right.
to, I want to obliterate the shame that comes with it because we feel like, oh, I should have not been traumatized. I should have not felt that way. I should have felt stronger. I say, stop shooting yourself.
Right. Yeah.
Because,
Shoulda, coulda, woulda.
yeah,
Done.
it's not helpful.
Nope.
Not helpful.
No.
It's just fight to regain what belongs to you. Your sense
Yeah.
of self, your sense of value, your sense of safety. Because safety is something that's taken out of you also. And your sense of
Yeah.
trust. Trauma steals a lot. It leaves you just wreckage on the inside.
It's sad. I think another thing about this too is, and I mentioned this with Jacob Brown last week, we need to be willing to forgive ourselves too, and forgive those. As hard as that might be, it's like that to me is like that next step to say, I am ready. It's going to be hard, but I'm going to go all in, and I'm going to surround myself with the right resources to help me.
Yeah.
And that accountability layer
Yeah.
you're talking about is the scariest freaking thing.
It
You
is.
know.
That's why trust is crucial to this.
Yeah.
You have to be working with someone that you trust.
Yeah.
Because you need that sense of safety to open up your heart and be vulnerable to this
Absolutely.
person who's supposed to be able to help you, and you're really hoping they're going to do that, but you're like, are you really gonna help me?
Right.
I really get that. And so
Yeah.
trust is crucial to be able to make yourself vulnerable like that.
In
That's
the
why I
comments-
did that whole
Yeah.
vulnerable thing. I did all my podcast things live, and I didn't edit anything out, and I did it intentionally so people see the real me.
Yeah. I
They
love
see
that.
me mess up. I forgot a word, forgot what I was talking about. I stumble over my words. I coughed. I sneezed. Whatever it
Yeah.
was, I didn't edit any of that out. We need genuine. We
Yeah.
need to feel safe.
I agree.
That's why all my coaching is also done on Zoom, because I want people to feel safe.
Yeah.
We don't do it in person because there's
Yeah.
a certain level of discomfort with that.
Yeah. When you're coaching somebody and they're going through that type of trauma, they're uncomfortable already because they have to learn to be transparent and vulnerable. And for us, that's not easy for us humans.
Right.
You know, it's not like part of our fabric of life.
Right.
You know, and so if you guys, if there's anything in your life right now that this is relating to you, comment below. Share us some topics, things that you're doing. We would love to respond and try to either figure out a way to help you, provide you some resources and guidance. But this is such an important topic when you really dive deep into self and your discovery of self and the journey. We're all on a journey, right? And across that journey, we're collecting experiences, good, bad, ugly. It's and those experiences are what makes every one of us unique
Yes.
individuals and beautiful and wonderful. But we're all on the same exact journey. It's just, again, all these little experiences across that journey, you know?
And like you said, our experiences are what make us who we are.
Yes.
So when people say, what would you say to your younger self, or how would you live your life different? I would say I wouldn't change a thing, or I wouldn't be who I am today.
Yeah. See, and that's beautiful.
That's to appreciate who we are. That's part of
Yeah.
having a stronger sense of self.
Yeah.
And you had said something earlier about the coaching thing. I forgot what I said. See, here I'm messing up. You see, I'm
It's
just a
all
normal
right.
person who messes
We're just
up.
having a conversation here, guys. This isn't scripted. It's nothing. And you'll go
But
proceed.
I wanted to point out that there's a difference between coaching and counseling also.
Yeah, right.
I am not a counselor. I am a coach. If a counselor is for someone that they really need to do, deeper dives, and there are certain therapies that counselors can do that I don't do. But I am well aware of what I cannot do. So if you were to reach out to me and I'd say, you need a counselor, I would tell you that you need a counselor.
You're right. Yeah. Can't pretend to be something you're not.
No, I
That'll
don't
do
want
more
to.
damage and
I don't want to.
ruin the trust factor
Oh, yeah.
and credibility.
Right.
So, it's interesting because I was so afraid to start therapy when I started it. And it's been just a
So
little
was
over
I.
1 year for me. And I'll, like I said, I will never stop going. I had, I don't have a life coach anymore. I had, in fact, Mike Secord, he'll be on here, I think episode 4, if I remember. And he's a life coach. And he was actually my life coach for quite some time, a few years. And I loved it, and then he got too busy and I started getting busy doing stuff. And he's like, you're doing great now. And I'm like, all right, cool. So here I am. But this, and I mentioned it in a couple episodes I've done. This show, it's taken a lot for me to sit here and do this and have this. I am a very outgoing kind of person, but my own trauma in the last 3 years has really diminished my my confidence. And I'm scared to shit to do this show, to be honest. Every day I'm like, I gotta get there in front and talk to people that, but I'm like, you know what? It's just, you've had your experiences, I've had mine. Hopefully people that are watching this will relate.
Yeah.
And again, if it helps one person,
Right.
our job is done. I mean, not done, but we've accomplished
But it's useful.
what we're doing.
Yeah.
And so I love that. And this whole self-discovery journey for me personally has been a lot of fun, because been painful too, because you got to dig deep inside yourself. Like change, right? I've said this before with interviews and just conversation. If you're going to change, that's like, okay, I'm going to change a pair of shoes. Well, that's surface level. I'm going to go to the gym and lose 20 pounds. 2 weeks later, you're not going to the gym and you're adding 20 pounds. And these are all, I guess, definitions of change. You're doing something different than you were previously. But real change, transformative change, sometimes can really come from trauma. It could come from, I just hit rock bottom, I'm depressed, and I'm tired of being tired. And then you start to dig in your soul, right?
Yeah.
So I think that's all part of the self journey is who are you? You know, figuring out who we are as individuals and I think if some of us really took the time and did an exercise to get behind the why of what we do in life, and we would discover so much more about ourselves.
Yeah. Like my process, self, see, expose, love, and free.
Yeah.
S is for C, which is about awareness.
Yes. Yeah.
Then E is expose. That's to get to the why.
Right.
That's to get to the cause. That's to get to the reason. That's to get to the root. And sometimes it takes a bunch of times around that cycle to get to the bottom. It's like layers of an onion.
Yeah.
And then L is for love, because we need to lavish love on ourselves
Yep.
so that we will have the courage to do the work. We will have the courage and the strength and the boldness to do what is good for ourselves and to start loving ourselves.
Right.
So that we will do F, which is free. Those are the action steps to move forward, to get to the transformation, to get to the recovery, to get to the new you or the real you that's been hiding under there. Or, you know, form your, you know, who you want to be. Choose who you want to be.
And Danielle said, do the work. No one's going to do the work for you. You can go, you can have this amazing person as a coach, give you the structure and the guidance. But guess what? Danielle's not going to be following you around every day and pushing you. You have to do the work, right?
Right.
And sometimes that's the problem with a lot of us. We're procrastinators. And we like the idea of this. Like, oh, I love the idea. I'm gonna get my summer body and I'm gonna eat healthier. I'm gonna have more energy. Yeah. And then you're on your way back to the office or at home, and what do? We stop through McDonald's or Burger King, and then we go, well, I'll start that tomorrow.
Yeah.
You know, so we have to activate.
Yeah. That it's real easy to make the decision in the morning.
Yeah, exactly.
Because we are fresh with energy in the morning. Oh, yes, I'm going to do that. By the time 3 o'clock comes, 5 o'clock comes, our energy has been spent and we have less energy. So we have to have a sense of commitment. We have to have accountability.
Right.
And we have to not bite off too much that we can't chew.
Right.
We have to do it little by little. I shared a post on LinkedIn not too long ago about that little by little. And I went from not really exercising. I've always been a very active person, but as I entered midlife, I'm like, I want to do better than what I see other people doing.
Right.
So how do I do that? And I started exercising just 5 minutes a day.
Nice.
I had someone say, that's not going to do you any good. And they discouraged me.
Right.
And I'm like, well, I don't know if it's going to do any good, but I'm going to keep doing it anyways. I guess just my stubborn streak helped me there.
Nice. Well, I'm glad.
So I kept doing 5 minutes, and I would add more, little by little, one thing at a time, one thing at a time. And now I do exercises every morning. I've been doing it for 30, 40 years. 15, 20 minutes. They're not strenuous. They're stretching and,
kind of yoga format.
Well, not yoga, but just they're just to move my body.
Nice.
To move my body and to move the parts of my body. They say you don't use it, you lose it.
Right.
Was part of it. So like I'm going to use all the parts of my body. And then I started using weights, and I started with 1 pound weights.
Right.
I did that because I'd gone to physical therapy for an impingement in my shoulder at one time. And physical therapy is a great way to learn exercises to keep doing for the rest of your life.
Yes.
So I started with 1 pound, and I had 5 pounds, and I had 10 pounds, and I had 15 pounds, and I do 20 pound weights. I do these every single day. So I got a half hour to 45 minutes every day that started with that 5 minutes. And I like to call it what I got from a magazine years ago. 23 years ago, I read this article.
Oh, my.
And it was do just one thing. Because you can do one thing. One thing. And you do that one thing until it's not a thing.
Yeah.
It's just part of your life. And then what do? You do just one thing.
So what's interesting is that moment, right? Instead of going, okay, what am I going to do this entire day? You could get up in the morning and do that one thing. For me, I make my bed before I do anything. Like, I might be crazy in the head. I mean, I'm talking before I use the restroom, before I brush my teeth, before I have coffee. I'm like, it bothers me. But you know what? I saw this this commencement speech, and there was this admiral, and I can't think of the name right now, but I will put it in the description because it's an amazing speech. But he says, there's one thing that we can all do in our day. They start our day off right. And he says, make your bed. Because that's one thing. If you do nothing else, you have accomplished that one thing. Maybe it's not making your bed. Maybe it's picking up your socks because the night before you threw them on the floor. Whatever that one thing is, to Danielle's point, we got to identify that and do it and commit all the way through it. Something easy, something challenging. Like, you know, I'm very routine in my mornings.
Me too.
My afternoons are more fluid and flexible. But my mornings, 5:40, I'm up. I'm at the gym by 6:25. I leave at 7:30, go get my kids, and then I start my day, around 9 a.m. That's every single day.
Yeah.
And it's just like, I feel better. I have more energy. For me, that works.
Yeah. It does. It works for me. I have a very set routine also. I get up at a certain time. I do my exercises before I'm fully awake with my eyes closed in the dark. It seems silly, but I've been telling on myself for over 10 years now doing that. And then doing the weights, and then I have quiet time, and I listen to a certain song every morning because it's like I'm feeding my soul. You need to feed your soul how your soul needs to be fed. You know what you need to feed on. If you've been feeding on something that's making you miserable, maybe your one thing is change what you're going to feed on. Instead of listening to this sad song that feeds your sadness and your misery, change the song to something more encouraging. It doesn't have to be, bouncing up and down like the wheels on the bus or anything like that. But it could be just something that's encouraging. Well, sometimes, like I said, you don't want to bite off more than you can chew.
Right.
You mentioned going to the gym. Well, maybe you want to go to the gym, but you're not going to commit long term.
Right.
So how could you make that smaller? I'm going to go inside the gym once a week, and I'm going to go to the parking lot 2 other times.
Right.
Maybe that's silly, but pick how it affects you. What do you want to do? Are you drinking too much coffee in your own estimation? Well, how many is that?
Right.
Too much and doing better and improving, those are too vague.
Right.
You have to do it in something that you can tell the difference. That's all that matters. It's about you and you getting better and you improving your life. Maybe you drink 5 cups of coffee. Well, tomorrow drink 4.
Right.
And do that for maybe a year, maybe a week. It's up to you. It's not about being in a hurry. That's one thing I wanted to bring up also is about patience. You have to have patience with yourself. You talked about forgiving yourself.
Yes.
And to speak to that also, forgiving yourself and forgiving others is not saying what you did was fine. That is not what forgiveness is.
No.
Forgiveness is, I love how the guy who wrote the book, The Shack, said it. Forgiveness is letting go of the other person's throat.
Oh, that's interesting.
Because you're like, and it's this animosity, and you let go of the revenge that you have toward yourself or toward the other person. And it's like, as a person of faith, I hear, God, you take care of that. I'm going to move on. And then when you do that, you set your own soul free from that misery.
Right.
And you're able to move forward, and you can leave that over here. You're not excusing the behavior. And the same thing with patience. We need to have patience for ourselves. And I love the illustration of watching a kid learn to walk. Does a kid get up and walk and just, he's running a marathon? No. They start pulling up on a chair or on a table, and then they fall down. How many times do they fall down?
Yeah.
I have never seen, and hope I never do see, a parent or a person yelling at a kid because they fell down.
Right.
Why don't you know how to walk yet? That's ridiculous. But we do that to ourselves. Yeah. How come you aren't going to the gym, 5 times a week? Yeah. How come you're not doing this? How come you did this? Give yourself grace. Have patience. You have to practice self-care and treat yourself. I like to tell my clients and those I speak with, look at yourself like a beautiful garden.
Right.
A garden needs tended. You need to water it, you need to weed it, you need to feed it, you need to plant, you need to harvest from it. It has all these different essences to it.
Right.
But if you take everything out of it and give it to your neighbor, you don't have a garden anymore.
No.
But people will do that with themselves. They'll take everything, they'll spend it all, and then they'll be done.
Right.
And that's not healthy self-care. You have to take care of yourself like a beautiful garden, because we're created to enjoy life and to share with other people.
Yeah. Oh, I love that. Nurture, to cultivate, just, do everything possible to just, grow.
Yeah.
You got to grow through it. A lot of stuff in life you absolutely have to grow. I know I do on a daily. I'm growing through. I have a massive garden then, because I am constantly watering myself, and I'm my worst enemy. I mean, I self-sabotage myself so much, and over the last few years, which is really what led me to losing lack of my confidence. Mm-hmm. I used to do a lot of videos and stuff out there and try to help people, because just to share a positive message, I pulled back until now on this show. I think if all of us take the time to truly dig deep in our hearts and our souls, and we're willing to be honest with ourselves, mm-hmm. we will find this amazing human, and we'll start looking at life a lot differently. Yes. I can only speak from my own experiences, where my change really didn't start happening until I was willing to do that. Mm-hmm. Be honest with myself, and self-love. I've never self-loved myself at all my entire life.
Oh, well, were you raised to think that was bad? I
don't know.
I was raised to think that was bad. Loving yourself is being conceited and self-centered. And then if you're inside the church, then that's even worse, because you need to die to yourself. So it's like the self thing is, it needs to be others focused. So you had to almost erase yourself, is how I felt.
That's sad.
Yeah. No, we need to love ourselves, because we can't give what we don't have.
I agree
Back
with
to
that.
the garden. If I don't love myself, how can I love you? Because then I don't know how to operate love. Even in the church, or the Bible tells us to love God, but it doesn't start there. He loved us first.
Right.
He started it.
Right.
He gives us what we need.
I love
so
her.
we have to have love for ourselves to give it to someone else.
Yeah, and it resonates. I mean, that it just spills out of you, because her social posts are awesome, because she'll just sit there and go, love you, I love you, and that could be your post, and then it's like a picture or something, but your content just pours love, right? And guidance, and I think people who read your stuff, your content, really, I think it hits a heartstring for a lot of them, because there's so much truth there.
Love is our greatest need.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and love gets turned into something that's like imaginary in your head, because you can't see it with your eyeballs.
Right.
So people tend to make it something it's not. But love is powerful. Love is healing. Love is strength. Love is encouragement. Love, it's the greatest thing we need. They've done studies with babies and orphanages and monkeys and all kinds of stuff. Love is our greatest need. The songs are right. All we need is love.
Oh, I was just saying, wait, the Beatles. Isn't that the Beatles?
Yeah.
Yeah. I was like, you're saying, I'm going, there's a song about that.
Yeah, it's true, but we struggle with it because we're imperfect and we make mistakes and we don't always love well. Sometimes we love badly.
So in your journey, I agree with that, by the way. Then sometimes you love real badly. You got to get away from me. And that's usually myself. I'm like, get away from myself. You guys, come on. What a way to end episode 2. Danielle, you're awesome. Thank you. Thank you so much. You guys have a great day and continue your self-love, your self-journey, and thank you so much. There we have it. We'll do a little behind the scenes.